Hello YouTube, I'm here to talk a bit about optimization. There's been a lot of talk about the new consoles saying that because they now have an x86 structure like everything else has, they are no longer gonna improve in the same way that the PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 3 or other consoles, the old Xboxes did. Because back then there was like this, consoles was like a whole different thing than the computer was. And all the developers had to learn how to develop for those things, and because of that they made it wrong in the start, and then they got better, and then they made better looking games in the end. A lot of people claim that this is the main, if not only, reason why we moved from games like the early Resistance coming out on PlayStation 3 right at release, MotorStorm, not looking that good, and then going to games like Last of Us, which looks gorgeous on the PlayStation 3. People are saying that this kind of thing is not going to happen on the new consoles because they're not different from a computer. And this is wrong. Optimization is way more than this. But before I start telling you exactly why it's wrong and what optimization means on the new consoles, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you what optimization is so we're all on the same page. Optimization is simply said making sure that the program runs as efficiently as at all possible, taking up as few resources to do each action as you possibly can. Optimization can be done in a lot of ways. These are the three ones I'm going to talk about today. If there are some game developers out there who say, oh, but we use this or that a lot more than we use one of the things you listed, I'll concur completely that you guys probably know what you're using. I am a programmer on a university level right now. I'm in the middle of my education, so if someone out there who's been working on actual games come and say, no, we use that instead, completely fine. A lot of my points will still be valid. The first kind of optimization I want to talk about is prioritizing. It's the one kind of optimization that I don't think anyone reasonably will say that you can't do on the new consoles. It's basically going, okay, are we gonna take anti-aliasing, or are we gonna have better models? Take two things that both require resources and decide which one of them is more important for our game. This kind of optimization happens always. You always have to make some choices. Do you want better light effects? Do you want better shadows? Do you want better models? More debris lying on the floor? There's a lot of prioritizing to make your game look as good as possible, and that's going to happen no matter what console or if it's a computer you're running the game on. The second kind of optimization I'd like to talk about is hardware optimization. Hardware optimization is extremely technical. I'm not even gonna go into the tiniest bit of detail because it's so complicated and it's so complex. I'll link to low-level programming in the description, but I'm just gonna give you a quick run on of what it is here. It's basically a machine code or assembler where you can go in and access the hardware directly. It can make your program run a lot more efficiently. It can take up a lot less resources if you do it this way. It's very time consuming to program in assembler compared to programming in anything else though, and programming machine code is probably the most ridiculous thing I've ever tried. But it gets the program running much more efficiently. I'm gonna tell you why this can be done in the same way on a computer. It can be done on a computer, but just not in the same way. First of all, accessing the hardware is not as smart when you don't know exactly what hardware you're accessing. Sometimes you might not want to move the data around in the same way, depending on what kind of processor or RAM you have. It can make a lot of difference just between different models, how the things move around on it. It can make a lot of difference which graphic card you have, if it does it better this way or that way. So it's not reasonable to program for all the different kinds, and you can't be sure that if you optimize for one of them that it will be running as well on the other ones. You can sometimes actually assume that it won't. Another thing is that the low-level language, the assembler or the machine code I was talking about earlier, could theoretically change. Someday AMD or Intel might come out to us and say, hey, we found a completely new way to make CPUs. It makes them 10 times as efficient, and they use this new way of processing things. And then anything that uses the old way of processing won't be able to run on the old computers because they're using the low-level programming. High-level programming don't have the same problems because they're compiled into low-level programming, so you just need a new compiler that can compile it from the high level to the new kind of low-level programming. I hope this makes sense. There's a lot more to it. If you are in doubt about what I'm saying, I suggest go look up what it's about. It's very technical though. The last kind of optimization I want to talk about, I've called it plain cheating. It isn't really. It's if you try taking a look at the two screenshots, you'll see a big difference in the graphics. These games were released around the same time. I know Crash was in 1996. Silent Hill 1 was about the same time. If you look at them, you'll see there's a tremendous difference in how much they have rendered. You can see that there's a fog in Silent Hill that covers pretty much everything, so you can only see like a small area. Crash Bandicoot, there's a whole world out there you can see all the way down to where it naturally stops being visible. And the thing is, Silent Hill does not have a fog because it was a smart stylistic choice. In the first game, it was actually a way for them to deal with the PlayStation 1 not being able to render more than what you can see on that picture. It was a way for them to make sure that they could actually run the game. They could have the graphical fidelity that they wanted running on the hardware available. Crash Bandicoot's team on Naughty Dogs did a lot of things. You should try, if you ever want to read about optimization, just try reading that. They have like this blog where one of them goes through the whole process of designing Crash Bandicoot and how they work with it, and you hear about all the troubles they went through to make this game work the way it does. What they've done, for instance, is find out exactly how many polygons they can have on the screen at the same time. They've seen how many polygons exactly can the PlayStation render before it starts lagging. And they have then designed the levels so that this amount of polygons are always visible. For instance, if you see on the one here in the background, there's a lot of polygons because they're farther away, so each polygon takes up less space. Then they're blocking it with stuff like leaves or with some boxes standing in the way, so that once you get to the box, there will be less things in the way. It's so complicated. They've used a lot of hardware optimization as well, written a lot of machine code, used very little of the development tools Sony gave them for the PlayStation 1. But this is just showing the graphical progress you can have between two games released around the same time, been in development at the same times. Doing stuff right is so important. Making the game the right way, programming it properly, using hardware, programming in the hardware instead of on the programming on the hardware instead of on the high-end level, just makes a huge difference. And in order for you to program hardware level, in order for you to know the limitations of the system, knowing exactly how many polygons you can have on the screen, you need to know exactly what kind of hardware you're dealing with. And you know that on a console. You don't know that on the computer because everyone has different computers. My point of all of this is just optimization is still a thing. It might have seen the same leaps as we did during the last console generation, where they did indeed have to learn how to even work the stuff. But I can guarantee you that the PlayStation 4 in 5 years are gonna look a lot better than it does right now. I think this is what I have to say right now. Thanks for watching, and I hope it's been just a bit educational. Goodbye.